Netflix gives us another adaptation of Stephen King. Does it work, or is it better left on the page? Time to find out. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nightmare Collective. I'm Chris. Thanks for stopping by and watching my review for Mr. Harrington's phone. We're getting a lot of phones this year. We got Mr. Harrington's phone, the black phone. It's like mid-2000s where we got phone booth and cellular, when a stranger calls and one missed call. Those aren't 2000s movies. I was just thinking of phone movies at the top of my head. There's a lot of phone movies. A lot of phone movies, phone-based movies. It's weird. What's the other one? Countdown. That had to deal with phones and apps and stuff. Anyway, let me know your favorite phone movie down below. What's your favorite phone movie? It doesn't even have to be a horror movie, but if you got a horror movie that's based on a phone, let me know down below. I'd be interested to see how many phone-based horror movies we can come up with down below. All right, let's get into this. So, this movie is about a boy, Craig, played by Jaden Martell, and Mr. Harrington, played by the great Donald Sutherland. So, the premise here is that Donald Sutherland is basically a super rich asshole loner, and he wants somebody to come read for him. And Craig reads in church, and so he feels like he would be a good fit to read to him, and so he hires him a couple times a week to come read books to him as his eyesight is failing. So they build a bond and a friendship, and you get to see, years pass where Craig starts out as a very young boy, and then he progresses into a teenager, into high school, and then later into college, where we kind of end the movie at. So what I like about this movie, before we kind of get into plot stuff, is I think the acting is really well done. I think Martell does a really great job here, playing that very shy, reserved character, kind of similar to what we got in It with him playing Bill. And you kind of see that progression a little more than you did with Bill, though, because he really didn't get to expand his role there as it was given off to the adult actors in the second half. But I like this here because you do kind of see him come into his own, and he does make missteps, and he does question himself, and he's got a lot more dynamics going on here than he did as Bill. But anyway, let's get into it. I think the acting is good. I will set you up with your expectations here. This is not a horror movie. This is not some Blumhouse, Ryan Murphy produced like Scarefest like you might think it is. That's kind of what I thought. I was like, okay, I know what the short story is based on. What's this going to be? I'm curious to see kind of what they do. Do they add anything to expand it into a full-length thing? And they really don't. I mean, you get some creepy images like once or twice here, but for the most part, it's very tame, and it's a very much a drama about their relationship. So let's start out. So really where we pick up is he is in high school, and basically everybody has cell phones, so he asks his dad for a cell phone. He gets that, and then he gets scratch-offs occasionally from Mr. Harrington every holiday. They come in an envelope, and his dad's like, hey, he's doing that because he doesn't want to pay you. So he's giving you these scratch-offs because they're $1, and yeah, it may do it, but it excludes him from having to pay you a bonus every year. So I think that's kind of funny. But one year he does win $3,000. And so a way of kind of returning the favor and kind of showing Mr. Harrington that he cares is that he buys him an iPhone. So he has an iPhone, Mr. Harrington's gonna have an iPhone. And at first he's reluctant to like take the device. He's like, nope. They got radiation, and they're going to corrupt the entire world, and people are going to be chained to these devices. And, well, I don't, he's kind of right. We're all chained to this device. You're probably watching me on a device right now. Mr. Harrington was right. Mr. Harrington 2025. No, don't do that. He'd probably be a terrible politician based on what we perceive he's done in order to get to the place that he's at. But anyway, he shows him, he's like, hey, you like finance. So instead of like waiting for that paper to be a day late with all, old news, you can just click on this app and it'll show you all the stuff that's happening right now in the stock market. So that intrigues him, and he's like, oh, I have been arrogant. I could use this. And then he becomes chained to the device just like he thought he does. I do like, and this is in the book as well, I do like the little monologue he gives about like kind of having an insight into what is to come, because this starts out in like 2003 and then moves on. We get around, this is like 2007 probably when the iPhone came out, so this is that time You get an insight into what Mr. Harrington believes is going to happen in the future and why these devices are ultimately our downfall. Is we're attached to them, and like this free enterprise of information can't last like this forever. There's going to be something that collapses, and the papers have advertisements in them, and that's what they're based on. And so then you get into like, oh, this is our crazy future. Now we've got subscriptions, we've got paywalls, we've got, even to read newspapers now, there's paywalls to get through to read the newspaper. And so he was very much right in his insight into where we are today. And it's just a crazy thing to think about, because I know a lot of times we don't think about that stuff because we don't like to think about the dark side of like devices and like the internet and stuff like that. But he gives you a slight insight in that, and you're like, oh, we do live in a dark future, and it's only going to get darker probably. But let's move on from that. So he ends up using the device, and ultimately where our story like begins fully is Mr. Harrington does pass away. This is not a spoiler. It is in the trailer, and that is basically the crux of the whole plot of this movie. So if you are interested in it at all, that is something that happens. And where we start is he has the phone for Mr. Harrington that he gave him, and so he ends up putting it in a pocket in his casket when he is buried. And so one night he's feeling bad and he's sad about, him passing. So he texts him like, hey, I miss our afternoons. And he calls him and kind of leaves him a message. And then Mr. Harrington responds, hey man, if you don't want the dead to speak, don't reach out. It's a saying I've always heard that I live by. I'm not going to reach out to the dead because I'm afraid they might reach out back to me, So don't question those things if you don't want answers. So he begins to get these things, and then we move into him getting bullied at school. And so he calls Mr. Harrington. He's like, look, I'm afraid I'm getting bullied. And then, again, not a spoiler, this happens in the trailer. The bully dies. And so this is where our inciting event happens, where he asks for a thing and something happens. Now, is this coincidental? Is this something supernatural? That is what's left for you to find, and that's what the movie is going to be about. But that's kind of your setup. So if you're intrigued by that, I think you might enjoy the movie. But again, it's still a movie of not much happens. So be prepared for a slow burn, and typical King fashion, the ending is okay. I mean, it's more of a message than it is like a satisfying ending, I think. But it is still a statement on devices and phones and kind of where we can get ourselves if we kind of go down a certain path. So that's where I'll leave it. I really like this movie overall. I don't think it's bad. I've seen some reviewers kind of saying it's boring and stuff like that, but it is more of a drama. And if you've read the short story, I think it's just cool to see that kind of adapted. Is it amazing? No. It's not the best King adaptation, but it's also no Maximum Overdrive. Wait, Maximum Overdrive is amazing. It's no Dreamcatcher, but overall, I think it was fine. Like I said, I made breakfast this morning, I had some coffee, and I watched it, and it was fine. It was an enjoyable hour 45. So I was not disappointed in it, but could it have been better and more expanded like the Black Phone? Yes. So let me know your thoughts down below. What did you think of this movie? Did you like it? Do you like Stephen King? What's your favorite Sting adaptation? What's your favorite King book? I like to know all of that. So this is my first King adaptation review, so I'm very excited. I want to dive into his stuff, so that'll probably happen after this month, seeing as this month is jam-packed with content. So maybe in November, December, I'll try to get into Stephen King adaptations, as he is my favorite author, and I want to have that content on my channel, especially his horror adaptations. Maybe one day we'll get that James Wan Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot's one of my favorite Stephen King's book, and I love the Tobe Hooper movie, so made-for-TV movie, so we'll get into that eventually also. But if you like Stephen King, definitely, subscribe. We're definitely going to do a lot more of that in the future. So that's pretty much all I got today, so thanks for watching my reviews. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and if you like what I do, consider becoming part of the collective, and don't forget, some doors should never be opened.